Well, hello and welcome to a special Movie Burner podcast from Movie Burner Entertainment. We're only 3 days away from the release of Star Wars Episode 8 The Last Jedi, and we're talking Star Wars for the next 8 days, from The Phantom Menace to The Force Awakens. We'll be discussing these in episodic order, and we will even throw in the first of the standalone films, Rogue One, for good measure. The countdown begins.
And now we're moving on to my personal favourite Star Wars film of the Star Wars franchise, The Empire Strikes Back, which of course takes place 3 years after the events of A New Hope, and Leia is now leading the Rebel Alliance, and they're really holed up and operating out of a remote ice planet called Hoth. Darth Vader, as the opening crawl goes on to say, is hunting high and low for them. He doesn't say that, but I'm saying that, and is obsessed with finding young Skywalker, sending thousands of Imperial probes out in the direction of just about every planet. I love this film, Stephen.
Yeah, this is certainly slightly different from A New Hope. This film is more character driven, John.
Yeah.
We certainly delve more deeper into the main three characters, and obviously it's a much darker film, but there is the humour still there as well.
I just love the planets it goes to in this as well. I think this is probably my favourite film purely for the planets and the locations we visit. And starting off, what a place to start in Hoth with Echo Base and also the ice setting, which is another first at this point. I think it's still a first. I don't know if we've been to an ice planet since. We're going there in The Last Jedi by the looks of it though. Or are we? I don't know what crate is. But I digress. Anyway, in terms of openers, this is a little bit lacklustre, I think, this opener. Obviously it begins with the Star Destroyer sending out probes, and then it makes its way down to Hoth. And then we see that distinct figure, silhouette if you'd like, of the Imperial probe. I absolutely love the probe. I love the sounds from it, the visuals of it. I think it looks so cool. We were discussing this before we started recording this, Stephen, how the sounds, for me anyway, it reminds me of rubbing a glass, the top of a glass, that sound. That's what is it, Mr. Butt?
Yeah, Ben Butt, yeah.
Ben Butt. What a genius that man was, and perfectly personified with those probes.
Yeah, once again, Ben Butt, he adds his own unique sounds to this film. These sequences were filmed in Norway, I believe,
in
1979. Yeah, it must have been a filmmaker's nightmare to film backdrop of all white, basically. Certainly with the technology at that point, at ILM, especially for blue screen. I don't think green screen was invented at this point. It was certainly blue screen that was used in most special effects sequences. Again, I mentioned the Empire of Dreams documentary. Certainly highlights the difficulties of filming against white backdrops. But again, they pulled it off. Certainly in the special editions, they went and tidied up a lot of transparency, especially in the cockpits of those snow speeders.
Mm-hmm.
But again, mentioning those vehicles, we're introduced to the AT-ATs, or AT-ATs as I like to call them.
Yeah, then we're also introduced to the A-Wing fighters, which are, for me, synonymous with this film. It's the first thing I think about. I think about the AT-ATs, as you mentioned, and then the use of the tow cable. But we also get introduced to a Yeti-like creature early on in the film as well, who takes down, he does what Darth Vader couldn't do and takes Luke down with a swipe of a big hand. I think it's called a Wampa. And I love these early scenes in and around Echo Base, I believe it's called. I hope I'm not just making that up. With Han floating about, and then obviously getting out and trying to save his friend in the middle of the night in freezing temperatures. Luke early on shows that he's developed his connection to the Force. He's able to, albeit struggle, but he's able to get his lightsaber, free himself, and again we've got limb dismemberment in this film. He dismembers the poor Wampa's arm. It's just trying to eat. So I thought that was a little bit harsh on it. And then we see Ben Kenobi again in Force form, or Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he tells him, "You must go to the Dagobah system." And this is an interesting scene for me, and again it touches on the humour you were talking about, with again Han Solo saying, "I thought they smelt bad on the outside," when his tauntaun falls over and he cuts it open. And I think it's the first time we see a non-Jedi character using a lightsaber.
Yep, I think apart from Han Solo, I think Finn was the only other one that used a lightsaber.
I still don't know whether he's a Jedi yet. He might be a Jedi. True. I doubt it though.
Yeah, I mean this opening sequence was created because of the unfortunate accident. I think it was a car accident that Mark Hamill suffered back in 1979, where I think he broke his nose.
Yeah.
And they included this scene to explain his appearance was
And
certainly
interestingly, just touching on what you says about the snow setting, I remember hearing that they were filming just outside a hotel and it was blocked up the door, and they just sent Mark out, and I think the cinematographer stuck a camera out and filmed him doing his thing out in the snow, so I think he was very much left to himself.
Yeah, I remember director Erwin Kershner, I think his name was, mentioning, they were all cosy warm inside their, I think it was the entrance to their hotel, and they just picked a spot outside and obviously pushed Mark Hamill out to film that, but they were all cosy warm and he's freezing. Yeah, exactly. But that explained his appearance, because it certainly did look different. We see him in the Bacta tank recovering, and then there's that awkward scene, John.
Yeah, that probably just confirms that George was essentially winging it as this trilogy went along, making up as he went along. And I think there's actually been a script came out for this, an alternative script where Luke's sister was a different character completely, and Leia was separate. But of course, he decided at some point to make Leia his sister, which makes the addition of this kissing scene all the more strange. Yeah, it was awkward, as you said, really weird. But again, I think we see little hints of humour that really ease the dark tone of this film a little, with Leia joking with Han Solo during this scene as well, and obviously Luke sitting back with the arms behind him, looking all smug. But since we've since found out that Mark Hamill played a joke on that, didn't he, at the celebration scene, that my sister or my mother, my sister, my mother, I think, or was it Leia? It's the Carrie Fisher that said that, I don't know, but they've made a joke about it since. And also Chewbacca gets in the action as well, in the midst of awkwardness. Yeah,
this leads us up to the iconic battle between the Empire and the Rebels. The Rebels standing in the trenches, awaiting these AT-ATs approaching. And I think there's an actual scene through the viewpoint of one of the binoculars of one of the Rebel soldiers, where they zoom in on these things. I think it's their legs. You see it first, their feet and their legs, and I mean, that's quite a imposing figure you're seeing there, John.
Yeah, they basically just come out of the mist, really. Unbelievable scene. This one of my favourite battles in the entire Star Wars franchise. Exhilarating. Sadly not long enough for me. It was quite brief. But yeah, the imposing AT-AT walkers approaching, it made an impact on me when I first seen it as a child. Stuck with me for years, and absolutely love it. Obviously you've got the quicker Imperial March. I don't know the actual name of that theme, but it seems like a sped up Imperial March which just fitted the frenetic nature of this sequence all the more. And as I says, the A-Wings use their tow lines to bring them down. That's also iconic for me. Luke swinging from one and I think throwing a detonator in. That was great. Oh, his friend dying, that was a little bit sad, but I didn't care about him. Yeah, what was his name, sorry?
I think his name is Dax.
Dax, oh yeah. Well, he died, and I wasn't perturbed. Luke survived, that's all that mattered. And then we kind of a fleet in between that, and we go to inside shots of Leia refusing to leave. Han finally persuades her to leave, and just in time, because a certain Mr. Vader's on the scene, and he's walking very determinedly down the corridor with a set of stormtroopers, and that was quite eerie at the time as well, watching that as a child.
Something that just came into my mind as well, just previous to the battle, was there was a scene in the hangar where Han is, I think he's fixing something on the Millennium Falcon, and Luke's about to go to his X-Wing.
That's right.
I think this is actually the last time that Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford are in a scene together until Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and there's actually a nice little piece of back and forth between Han and Chewbacca. I think Chewbacca's trying to fix the Falcon, and he's joking. And we've actually missed the apology accepted Captain Neither bit as well, where he jumps to Hoth too quick prior to the battle. He makes a jump from hyperspace too quickly, and he's then replaced by Piet, who's another favourite side character for me. That's one thing I've always... Kenneth Colley, yeah. That's one of the things I've always loved about Star Wars. The way they really take these, or the fans really take these side characters, not really important to the story, and they really develop them, and they become something great. They become greater than the sum of their parts, if you like. We see this with Boba Fett later on in the film as well, and even some of the other bounty hunters.
I think Vader's determination as well was very evident.
Yeah.
Early on in this movie, John.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going right through these officers as if they're nothing, just because of his determined pursuit of Luke Skywalker and and capturing him. But no, it's a great. I think the pace of the film at this point is just so perfect.
Yeah.
You're right into the action right away. You know it's such a different tone to A New Hope.
Yeah.
And it gets even deeper.
Yeah, and obviously, just lightening things a little bit there, we also hear Luke voicing the Tannoy part as well, the first transporters away. I love that little Easter egg. That. And there's the sight of a Star Destroyer being temporarily disabled with the massive ion cannon. I thought visually that was tremendous during that battle sequence. And then obviously Luke manages to escape his X-Wing with R2, heads one direction to Dagobah, and the others escape in the Falcon. Well, they try to escape and then discover that the hyperdrive isn't working, and they get into a nice little chase scene with Star Destroyers and the TIE Fighters through an asteroid field, and this is one of my favourite scenes, and you've got something to mention about that, haven't you, Stephen? That everybody knows about it now. But
yeah, the potatoes, and I think there's a shoe thrown in there as well, but it's one of my favourite scenes as well, John. It's something that I'd never saw on film before, and it was certainly replicated in Attack of the Clones when Obi-Wan pursued Jango Fett, you know, with the implosion of I think it was an asteroid that broke into more pieces. But no, it's a very iconic scene. The music as well, from John Williams when they're going through this, this asteroid, and Han as well. He displays cunningness and how to escape the Empire, and this is where you start to see his character develop more.
Yeah, obviously they go into that massive space worm thing, but just before that, I love the shot of the Falcon flipping on its side and going through that little gap. That was incredible. I don't know how they actually filmed that in 1979. It's always been amused me, that one. It must have been an element of trickery, I don't know. But yeah, they go into that massive worm thing. Never really did understand how a creature could live in space. Maybe they had some form of atmosphere, these asteroids, I don't know, but it takes us in and they have a brush with strange gremlin-like things inside it, don't they?
Yeah, the Minoxes, yeah.
Yeah, the Minoxes.
Yeah, this is one of the bits that I like, just because of C-3PO's sheer panic and for a droid, he's showing emotion.
Down, you know? And before that, we actually see another hint at the humour. We spoke about this earlier in another podcast where he says, Chewie, take the Professor into the back and hook him up to the hyperdrive. Another hint, even though it's a darker tone, this film, it's definitely got lots of funny humour through it.
Yeah, certainly.
And at the Minox, and we see Han's brashness again, and his quickness to fire blasters when they're out. I think it's Chewbacca that's actually scared, and he decides, I'll have a couple of shots. Never learnt his lesson. Clearly, I think he did that in A New Hope as well. I'm pretty sure he did in the trash compactor, and this causes them to have to flee this thing when they actually discover they're inside a living being. And we get to see another brief escape where they go through another thin sort of a structure. In this case, it's a set of teeth, and I think that leads us on to them perching onto a Star Destroyer, doesn't it?
Obviously they're intersecting scenes with what's happening, with Han and Leia and what's happening with Luke down in Dagobah. Just touching on the sort of approach to this planet, I thought was outstanding for its day, John.
Yeah, very funny, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was obviously it's a set, but it was a very convincing set. Mark Hamill's since commented on that the water that was used, all these living creatures that were in the water and around the water and stuff like that. But the set itself is very convincing, and this is obviously the first time we are introduced to Yoda as well. Yeah,
and again we spoke about the ingenuity of what they'd done on the last film, but certainly in this, the way they built a set raised above the ground with a compartment underneath, with Frank Oz underneath controlling the Yoda puppet. I thought that was tremendous, I really did. And I love the Dagobah scenes. I think it's a real change in pace between what Han and the rest of the characters are experiencing and what Luke's experiencing. It's much more quiet and a slower pace, but I absolutely love the training montages, and obviously when he first meets Yoda prior to that, he's a little eccentric. He's clearly his mind's went a little bit wandering after all those years in solitude. And it's one of my favourite scenes in this film. Just that moment when he goes into the cave and meets Vader. It's basically like him meeting these fears, and it's almost prophetic in a way. They're kind of giving away the plot, really, unknowingly. You don't know it when you're watching it for the first time, but they're kind of giving away that Vader's his father. When he face mask explodes and it shows his face.
Yeah, I love the Dagobah sequences as well. From the moment Luke meets Yoda, he's getting tested.
Yeah.
From an audience point of view, back in 1980, we didn't know what Yoda looked like. We certainly didn't know this little green sort of puppet was this ultimate warrior, if you like. And he's certainly testing the audience as well as Luke. But it's the sequences themselves. It's all tests for Luke. I don't think Yoda believed that Luke was the one that would redeem Anakin Skywalker. He certainly had his doubts.
Yeah.
Especially with the maturity of Luke at this point. That's not to say that he's not matured. Certainly in comparison to the Luke in A New Hope, he certainly has matured, but he's not fully there as we do see it in the next episode.
Yeah, he certainly still lacks composure and patience. And I just wonder if that Yoda, famous Yoda stew now was as bad as Mark Hamill made it out to be when he tasted it and obviously had a look at discuss. I think it's actually got lamb in it, I've discovered since. It couldn't have been that bad, come on Mark. But yeah, the character of Yoda, yeah, he looked eccentric, but certainly he was wiser than he visually looked. And we see that certainly with the scene with the X-Wing getting raised out of the water, but I don't know if bits are interspersed in between that. I've not actually seen it in a little while, but I think they maybe do go to Bespin prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of go back and forth between the characters, and as you said, John, pre-special edition, Bespin was a very consolidated and claustrophobic set. It's one of the things I think they did well with the special edition was opening up this world, certainly the opening up the Cloud City, and giving you visuals that you would remember.
Yeah, I mean, I've criticised the special editions, I've criticised him tampering with it in the episode yesterday, but I completely agree with you. The Empire Strikes Back, I think the changes he made were brilliant. As I says, I've not seen the unaltered versions. I've seen photographs of Cloud City, and I have to say that it was much better than the special editions. It's much more expansive. It just brings a light to the set, the environment as well. And just again, I have to praise Ralph McQuarrie. The man was an utter genius. Those map paintings, the moment we actually go down into Bespin for the first time and we see the Cloud City, it's just jaw-dropping. It's breathtaking with also the really pink and orange tones and the sight of the city floating in the distance. And then we see those little weird bipedal, I don't know how to describe them, little dual pod red ship things. They're incredible as well. And obviously that takes us on to meeting another iconic character in the original trilogy, Mr. Lando. And that scene on the docking bay is one of my favourites in this film, when Han Solo steps off. He's given a sort of false assuredness with Leia, saying everything will be alright, and then when he steps out you can see for the first time he's maybe not as sure of himself when he's walking up. He doesn't know what to expect, and then Lando utters those famous words, "You've got a lot of nerve showing your face around here after what you pulled."
Yeah, I think Leia's initial reaction, or initial impression of the character of Lando was the correct one. He was certainly one to watch. He wasn't just a scoundrel, you know. It was obviously at this point in the character in talks with the Empire. But no, it's one of those things that I'm looking forward to when the standalone film Solo is released next May. Yeah. It's really going to see the early relationship between Han Solo and Lando. It's going to be very interesting to see these new actors portray them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredible how just a couple of little lines from the characters really opens up the possibilities of what they can do in a standalone film. It's certainly going to be interesting. Just prior to that though, and again we've kind of skipped, this seems to be something we're doing in this episode, apologies for that, I've not seen it in about a year, so bear with us with this one. But yeah, we also get the scene with the bounty hunters on the Star Destroyer, and we get to meet the array of different bounty hunters. I think it's IG-88, Bosk and Dengar, and just again the ability of Star Wars fans, and obviously the story group now, to flesh these characters out. These were basically screen filler in this film, but they've really fleshed them out, and they're appearing in games and everything. They've seen their backstory, and I hope this is something they maybe delve into in another standalone, where we get to see these guys' stories.
I remember seeing this scene for the first time, and I was so impressed with these bounty hunters. But I've grown up. I've realised that bounty hunters' favourite attire seems to be the boiler suit. But no, I mean, at the time they're very exotic, especially the lizard one.
Yeah, Bosk.
Yeah, I thought he was quite cool looking for that time. No, but this was a character. He certainly had a cult following. I certainly didn't. I didn't see that great appeal in it. I thought he looked cool and that was it, but I wasn't really taken by the character himself. Certainly we know what happens to him in the Return of the Jedi, but he certainly had a big following, this character. To dispose of him, in Return of the Jedi was certainly a misdirection, from George Lucas, but they certainly could have done something more with that character. But no, it was a great scene. I loved the interaction between Vader and Boba Fett. I think Vader says no disintegration.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, at that point it wasn't the actor who played Jango Fett who voiced him at that point.
Yeah.
I felt the original voice was more menacing.
Yeah.
But no, it was a great scene.
I think with Boba Fett, I think it was really just the mysteriousness of the character sticking to the side and just the cool armour. I think that's what probably made him appeal to people. Certainly with me, that's probably the case.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying, you know, yesterday in regards to the special edition. When we see him in A New Hope in that additional scene, it kind of kills his entrance in Empire Strikes Back, John.
Yeah, it does, yeah. I completely agree with you. I can't disagree there. But just going back to Cloud City, we then see Lando and his treacherous side. We also see C-3PO getting taken apart, which I was quite happy about. He was really annoying in this film. Anthony Daniels is a man that kind of annoys me anyway. Just for his almost pompous belief in his acting abilities. I don't know why, because he's only really portrayed one character. But yeah, he gets taken apart in this film. That was something I was happy about. I felt he should have maybe been left apart longer, because he doesn't really bring anything to the game at all. He's obviously just R2-D2's friend, if you'd like. But yeah, we see the treachery in the Lando character playing the happy guest thing and stuff like that, and then he also sticks him in and gives him over to Vader.
Yeah, the dining room scene, as I like to call it.
What a scene that is! It's brilliant.
It always intrigued me what happened in that room. You know, when he grabs the gun. I'm always wondering why they were in a dining room. I don't know. If it would have been a very awkward dinner. But you know, this showed the treachery of the character Lando at this point. I think he kind of half-heartedly apologises to Han. You know.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't think it was much he could have done. When Empire comes calling, you have to agree or you're dead. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think he had much of a choice. I think he actually says that later on in the film. I didn't have a choice or something along those lines. But yeah, I think going back to Dagobah, that scene I was touching upon earlier takes place now with obviously Luke trying to raise his X-Wing out of the water. He can't do it. I think Yoda then says, "Do or do not, there is no try," and I think it then goes on to lift it out, shows Look Up, Something Awful. We have that score and that theme, which is one of my favourite themes in the Star Wars films, I have to say, the Yoda theme. Absolutely love it. That comes to a real crescendo when he's bringing the X-Wing out of the water, and I think he says, "Judge me by your size," or something along those lines. I might say it before, I don't know. But yeah, brilliant scene, absolutely loved it.
That's you know, I've got to hand it to the special effects guys as well. You know, very convincing. Seen that, you know, raising the X-Wing out of the water. No, but it kind of cements the power that Yoda possesses, you know, and, you know, if you've not seen the prequels certainly weren't made back then, but it cements his sort of position, if you like, you know, as a Jedi Master and what he's capable of. You've got to hand it to Frank Oz as well, you know, his puppeteering skills and, you know, his voice acting really made this character.
I always wondered how they managed to... how Mark Hamill managed to have him balancing off his shoes in that scene when he's balancing the rocks. I always wondered how they managed that.
Yeah,
that must have been quite difficult. It must have took a few shots.
It was certainly a technique that worked back in 1979, you know, and it's something that they should have took into the prequel trilogy instead of those horrendous CG versions of
even
Yoda.
The dead-eyed puppet in the first one. Good lord. And yeah, this really leads us on to Luke leaving prematurely. He's told not to by obviously the Force Ghost of Ben Kenobi and Yoda. They tell him when he's having these premonitions of his friends being in danger that might not be the future. Yeah,
and obviously intersecting that scene is the scene in the room in Bespin where Han has been tested to see if the process of the carbonite chamber works, for obviously in preparation for Luke Skywalker, who at this point obviously doesn't know what's going to happen. Vader foresees this, and just switching back to Dagobah, Luke senses that his friends are in trouble and immediately leaves, as you said, John. Ben Kenobi and Yoda try to tell him to stay and complete his training.
Yeah, and during that carbonite scene, it's also that great line where Leia says, "I love you," and Han Solo replies with, "I know." And that was obviously Harrison Ford who came up with that on the spot. He really ad-libbed it, and that was just a great great moment for me, and it perfectly summed up the Han Solo character. I don't know what George was thinking by saying, getting him reply with "I love you too." Would never have been befitting of the Han Solo character. Would never have said that. But yeah, it was a iconic scene. Obviously, when he comes out of the carbonite chamber in that block, and
Luke obviously arrives on Bespin, there to save his friends. He certainly doesn't realise he's been led into a trap. Leia actually does scream that at one point, going down the corridors of Bespin. But no, this is when the film is getting darker, and obviously the confrontation. It's such an iconic scene when Luke enters that room and Vader's up those steps. I think it's a kind of red background behind him, if I'm not sure, blue or red, I can't remember, but the Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you are not a Jedi yet. Such an iconic line.
One of my favourite lines in all the Star Wars films. I thought it was utterly brilliant, just the way James Earl Jones says it, and also he's telling the truth. He's not a Jedi yet, he's in the middle of training. So it was a ballsy move by Luke to stay in that room. I certainly wouldn't if I would have ran. But yeah, just the shot, I think there's a famous silhouette of the two of them crossing lightsabers. I used to have a t-shirt with that on it, an Adidas t-shirt, and it's just one of my all-time favourite shots. I absolutely love it. I love the lighting, everything about this scene. It's one of my favourite scenes in the film, and certainly in any Star Wars film. The lighting, it's very dark, there's hints of blue in it. It's absolutely utterly brilliant, and this is the first proper lightsaber duel in the original trilogy. It's one of my favourite lightsaber duels. Certainly not get the acrobatics or the great choreography of the prequel ones, but you see the real size difference as well between the two. Luke's obviously only about 5'8", and David Prowse I think was a 6'8" guy, and so Vader was very, very large, and it was incredible seeing the size difference.
I think in the fighting scenes it was Bob Anderson.
Was it Bob Anderson? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, because David Prowse was just a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I think he was. I don't know if he was trained in fencing or whatever it was, but I think it was just to up the ante on the whole. The lightsaber sequences. But you're right, John. It's. I remember the way they held the lightsabers as well. They were two-handed.
Yeah.
There was, it wasn't like.
Yeah, Mark Hamill touched them on that, didn't he?
Yeah, it was as if they were supposed to be very heavy, weapons. But again, this leads us down to that corridor, that lit corridor where Luke's looking for Vader, and Vader just comes right out of the shadows to attack him. It's a great scene, and this is, I think, the first time we see the Sith use Force energy. I think it's, he's thrown everything at Luke at this point. The window smashes, Luke's vacuumed right out the window. It's quite an impressive scene.
Yeah, that scene with the corridor, we also see that in The Force Awakens when Rey has the premonition, or the little vision back, and it's one of my favourite scenes as well. I just love, again, the lighting and just the ominous quietness when he's walking along, and then you hear the breathing, and as you says, he gets sucked right out, and that's very impressive for the time. I don't know how they managed that with him hurling everything at him, and that takes us on to one of the most shocking moments in cinematic history, really. Certainly one of the greatest twists I can ever recall in a film. The Sixth Sense probably comes close, but it's not quite there for me. I think this is the greatest twist ever. And I actually watched an interview, I think, on Jimmy Kimmel the other day for The Last Jedi, and Mark Hamill was talking about this, how it wasn't revealed to him until they were pretty much shooting it to avoid leaks and that. We'll get on to it in probably a moment after we've discussed the scene, but it really was the final nail in the coffin for David Prowse and his relationship with George. I don't think it ever get back to being amicable. I think he always blamed him for leaking. Yeah,
I think actually, if you've watched that documentary, I Am Your Father, and Gary Kurtz, the producer at the time of the original trilogy, confirmed that David Prowse had no way of knowing.
Yeah, so that's harsh on him.
It was more of a shot in the dark, and it just happened to be true. Whether or not, at the end of the day, there's different sides of the story, but it certainly was a shot in the dark, and it unfortunate for him, he paid the price for it. I think the only people prior to knowing this reveal was Mark Hamill and James Earl Jones. Clearly James Earl Jones, because he had to say the line.
He had to keep it quiet for a year and a half, he says, and Harrison Ford actually said to him when they were watching the first screen, you didn't tell me about that one, or something along those lines. It was fascinating insight, and it really shows you how adept he is at keeping secrets, so he's certainly not going to leak anything for the new one.
And it's certainly something that's carried on into these new films as well. The big secrecy wasn't really heard of in Hollywood at this point until The Empire Strikes Back. Mark Hamill's certainly a master at this now. He's so well versed in keeping secrets, and he's so clever in his play of words whenever he's interviewed. This all stems back to 1980 when he had to keep the biggest secret of all. It certainly was a shocking line. I was too young to recall this the first time around, John, but I can imagine cinema goers going to this film, listening to that line, and I would believe that half of them wouldn't believe what Darth Vader was saying, I've got to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't even born when it was first out. It was 10 years or something until I was actually born, 9 years. But certainly the first time I seen it, it was a real shock to me, and it's, as I say, it's one of the greatest twists for me ever. And just prior to that, we'll go on to this probably a little bit more. Maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, just this confirmed something when they were fighting, that obviously I think Vader was taking it easy on Luke during this lightsaber battle. He wasn't really trying to kill him at any point. He also was aware that he was his son. He was trying to really force him into a position where he could really try and manipulate him, get him to join his side. And it's not really till Luke strikes his shoulder that we see what he's capable of in terms of lightsaber ability. And he then cuts his hand off, and again we get a famous limb dismemberment. This is probably one of the greatest limb dismemberments.
He's certainly pushing him all the way in this confrontation, John. He certainly wants to test Luke, see what his abilities are, how far he's came on in his training. As you said, I don't think he's trying to kill him, but I think Luke, through a few lucky shots, if you like, angers him a little. And he does lash out. Obviously, we Luke catching Vader on the shoulder, as you said, and Vader retaliating by cutting his hand off. And where did that lightsaber go?
Lord knows, but it certainly ended up Maz Kanata's chest at some point. I don't know how that happened. Apparently it went right through the planet, if you believe some people. But yeah, as you say, we go on to the famous line. I have to show some appreciation for Mark Hamill's acting ability during that, because I thought it was absolutely fantastic the way he screamed. It was a real believability. I thought that was probably one of his better acting performances. And I
think the original line that was said on set prior to post-production was from David Prowse saying, Obi-Wan killed your father. I might be wrong in saying that, but I think that's what the line was. And Mark Hamill's reaction and his disbelief and his denial in that reaction, I think George Lucas has to be commended for that. It's a very clever way of setting it up but keeping the secret.
And even the scores during that as well, it's just everything about the scene's perfect. It's one of the greatest cinematic scenes for me. The lighting, the visuals, the score, the acting. And then Luke obviously decides to fall down into the garbage chute or something, I think it is, or like the trash chute thing. And visually again, I absolutely love the way they made that look the way it did in the films, because obviously on set it was only about a 6 feet drop with that onto a rubber mat. So again, I think that was a great Ralph McQuarrie matte painting that really emphasised a real drop. And
that drop, it was a thing that I read when the special edition came out. They re-recorded the Willem scream from the original one and replaced it with the Emperor's scream from Return of the Jedi, and it was bizarre to hear Luke scream like that. But they've since then, for the Blu-ray, they've reinserted the original scream. But certainly was a great sequence. Luke hanging with one hand, you've got to remember. From that, it looked like a kind of a...
It looked like an upside down antenna.
And reaching out to Leia. And this is the first hint we get that Leia has these abilities as well. It's a great scene, it's just the way it's shot. Just face on to the face of Carrie Fisher. She's just deep in concentration. She knows that Luke has tried to reach out for help, and she her instincts are correct.
And I love the visuals of Lando popping up out of the Millennium Falcon through that escape hatch to grasp Luke. And that takes us on to probably one of my favourite scenes in Empire Strikes Back, where he returns to the flagship Imperial Star Destroyer, the Executor, and he really has a on-off moment with Luke, who's also trying to escape in the Falcon, and we see him try to make a connection with him through the Force. And again, there's issues with the hyperdrive. I think the Empire actually deactivate it. And we see a great shot of R2-D2 connecting, swinging and going flying. And then that moment on the bridge with Vader, I think you touched upon it recently actually, where Piet's terrified that he's going to meet a similar end to Nida. Vader looks absolutely disgusted the shot of him just walking down that bridge and the music, it's one of my favourite moments from John Williams in any Star Wars film. Just the way that music slowly gets lowered, and I can't even describe it, but it's for me one of the great moments in a Star Wars film, with Vader walking out the bridge and the music accompanying it.
Yeah, and the final sequence is that shot of Luke, Leia and the droids looking out into space. I think they're talking to Lando, the now redeemed Lando, we might add. They're going to rendezvous on Tatooine. It's certainly setting up the next episode, but you can imagine watching that film back in 1980, John. A cliffhanger moment. You've got to wait 3 years to find out whether or not Darth Vader was lying, whether he was making it up, whether he was manipulating Luke in any way, because Luke had his doubts as well. But he also said I think he was talking through the Force to Obi-Wan, why didn't you tell me, Ben? It's probably the greatest Star Wars film made to date. Personally, I like this film as much as I like A New Hope for different reasons. But certainly it's a fan's favourite. I don't think there's been a Star Wars film since this one that's, on par with it. Yeah,
that final shot is my favourite, my absolute favourite of any of the Star Wars films. That shot of them looking onto the galaxy, incredible. The Leia theme, as you said, that perfectly adds to the scene. And I completely agree. I love A New Hope. It's probably my second favourite, barely behind Empire Strikes Back. I think the first two films are amongst the greatest films of any films ever made. I think they're absolute genius for very different reasons. A New Hope's much lighter in tone. Empire Strikes Back, as you said, very character driven, much darker in tone. Everything's going the Empire's way. It's my personal favourite, and then I just absolutely love the film.
I think George Lucas made the right decision employing I don't want to say a proper director, but a director of Irwin Kershner's abilities.
I would say a proper director.
And obviously, Lucas at that time was setting up his own companies, ILM, etc. Like I mentioned in the previous episode. He was a busy man himself. Certainly had a lot of hurdles in making this film as well. I think actually he got sued for. I think in A New Hope, it was the very first time that the titles or the credits weren't at the beginning of the movie in any film. He was warned by the studio not to do it again, but to keep continuity, he did it again, and I think he was sued for doing it again, keeping the credits for the end film. It's a very common thing now. I think the Avengers and everything do it now, but back then it wasn't the protocol. Just in summary, though, it's a great film, great tone. I love the pacing of it. I love the soundtrack. I love the score. Sound effects, very unique again. Characters, amazing. And it sets up, obviously, the final episode of the original trilogy, John.
Yeah, which we're going to be discussing tomorrow.
So I'd just like to thank you once again for joining us on our special edition of the Movie Burner podcast here. Tomorrow we're going to be picking up on episode 6, Return of the Jedi. So we'd just like to thank you once again for listening.